Many know tarot to be a tool for fortune telling. On this channel, we use it for healing and self-awareness rather than for predictive purposes. If you want to see the difference between a fortune-telling oriented reading versus one that's focused on shadow work, keep watching. Hi, it's Leia. Welcome to Diaries of a Witchy Creative Life. In today's video, we are using Chris Ann's The Light Seers Tarot to demonstrate a predictive style of reading versus one that's geared towards healing and self-awareness. To clarify, both of those styles of readings could incorporate the other, but sometimes a particular reading leans more towards this or that. And there are other styles of readings as well. The reason why I chose a predictive style of reading to compare to a more shadow work oriented one is because tarot has a reputation as being a fortune-telling tool. Whereas if you're new here, the readings that we do are for inner growth. We don't look at what's going to happen next week or when you're going to meet the love of your life, etc., etc. There is an ever-growing series of how-to tarot videos on this channel, and this video is going to be part of that, because I wanted to give a relatively quick illustration of how the readings here differ as compared to something that's more on the predictive side. I'm going to link the playlist to those videos in the description. Some of those who might benefit from these how-to videos, by the way, are beginners to tarot, as well as those who want a refresher on tarot, like if you stopped practicing and now you're starting over, but you do have a little bit of background already. And also those who have an existing practice but are open to seeing what else is out there that they resonate with. As I mentioned, we're using the Light Seers Tarot, which if you find yourself really liking it is the same deck that I've been using throughout the entire series of how-tos, which is to keep it uniform, although in the future, if a certain video calls for it, I might incorporate another deck, or if I'm inspired to, maybe use another deck altogether. But this is one of my absolute favorite decks. And in this video, we are going to use a 2-card spread. I chose pros and cons. So let us pick 2 cards. And I'm gonna center these cards as well as adjust the light. Okay, there. What I ended up doing was scooting the cards a little further back. So let's get started. We are gonna use the same cards both for the shadow work type reading as well as for the predictive style one. So we are gonna come up with a sample scenario with a sample sitter. I invite you, by the way, if you're interested in the style of readings that we do on this channel, to watch the other videos. I know I already mentioned them, but watching a variety of videos focused on the same style of reading will help you grow more accustomed to it, if that is what you're interested in learning. Okay, so what sample situation from a sample client will we be exploring? How about let's choose a relationship-related situation? And I know we do that a lot on this channel, but the reason for that is many times when someone wants a reading, it's about a relationship. Okay, so let's say this client is on the fence about a new relationship. They want some insights in order to gain clarity about what they're going to do next. This is the pros card, this is the cons. And let's start with the approach that we follow on this channel, which is for shadow work, healing, and personal awareness. So what we do is, we flip the cards over one by one. Let's start with the pros. Okay, I flipped that over and put it in there a little too quickly before I showed you up close. That is what it looks like. The 5 of Swords. And let's adjust it so it's not so glary. So what we do is we look at the meanings first. The Five of Swords is about conflict. It's about a victory that you or someone else who's involved isn't happy about. The victory might feel meaningless or hollow, or it might seem like there aren't any real winners. Like even the one who is the victor didn't really win because they lost something in the process, or they resorted to means that aren't fair in order to win. And it could be that they're regretting that now, or they know that, as we already said, they didn't really win then. So there's this sense here of having a yucky feeling after a fight or a disagreement. And it could also refer to an unexpected loss, losing and being so affected by it, not liking it at all. So with our style, what we do here is we ask questions that are related to those meanings in order to see what the client can relate to. Sometimes it's as simple as giving the meanings and asking the client which of those they relate to and how. Of course, in connection to what that particular card stands for, which in this case, again, is the pros of the situation. And what makes this interesting is the Five of Swords can seem to be a very difficult card. As I personally say, there are no bad or good cards in the tarot, although on the surface, some may seem to lean more towards positive or negative. And while the more seemingly negative cards come with a gift, when you first look at them, the impression that you get does lean towards not so pleasant initially. So what our sample client could say is, how I relate to this is the relationships that I was in prior to this one had a lot of conflict. In this current one, we haven't argued or fought. Even when we disagree on something, it's very peaceful. The thing is, I'm left with this feeling of something isn't right. And I don't know if that's just because I'm so used to the excitement from having huge fights in my other relationships. No, those relationships were not healthy. There were varying degrees of abuse. Some of those relationships were worse than others, but there were a lot of fights. And I could see the pattern too. If things were too quiet, someone had to start a fight. It seems like neither myself nor those other people that I was involved with could appreciate just being still. Everyone I've been involved with so far, it's just the norm to yell, to get angry, to be very expressive. So right now, I would say that it is a good thing that I'm with somebody who is very different from all those other people. And I think that that's what has left me feeling unsettled. That's what has left me unsure about whether I want to continue with this. It isn't because they're not fun or sweet. No, they're really awesome. They're kind. And I recognize that it's better for me to continue down a path like this instead of being with partners like I was previously with. But I don't know. Something about it just doesn't feel so good. Maybe I don't feel at home in it. So do you see now how a not so seemingly positive card could be interpreted under pros? Because in your journey as a tarot reader, you will encounter similar situations where the position of the card is supposed to be something positive. But then what strikes you as a difficult card shows up when you turn the card over. And the opposite might be true as well sometimes, where a card, for example, that stands for challenges, you flip it over and you see something super positive. So how do you interpret that, right? What I can tell you is to keep going, to keep digging, and besides, you will be asking your client questions. So let them answer and follow that thread. So when the discussion about the first card is over, you can now flip over the second card, which is the cons. This is the Four of Cups. So same process, let's look at the meanings first. The Four of Cups could be about meditating or focusing within. If you take a look at the figure on the card, you'll see that she doesn't seem to be interested in what's in front of her. So that could be, like I already mentioned, focusing within, thinking or being preoccupied with something going on inside of yourself. But it could definitely also be interpreted as being bored or dissatisfied with your current situation, so you may be unable to see the good that is available to you. And another meaning is waiting for the right time to say yes or to accept what's being offered to you. It's not a total no, it's just a not right now. So we tell those meanings to our sample client. And let's say this is their response to how they relate to it. This is making me consider now that it isn't that the person that I'm with is wrong for me. It's not that this is not a great relationship for me to pursue, but I definitely need to do inner work before I can fully appreciate it. Because lately, I've been wanting the thrill or the exhilaration of having heated and passionate exchanges. I know it doesn't really sound so healthy, but regardless, I think I need to work on that. I don't want to let go of what might be a really good partnership eventually. So maybe what I can do is let them know that I want to take it slow. I want to enjoy being together, but I don't want to commit too quickly or have too many expectations of this relationship at once. I think that the fact that I am still craving a lot of excitement right now, even if it means being with an unhealthy partner, says that this needs my attention, and so on and so forth. In a real reading, you'll let your client or sitter explore what's come up for them. But yes, basically that is an illustration of how we do our readings here. The healing / personal awareness / shadow work approach. Now let's take a look, for comparison's sake, for those of you who do want to learn the difference, how something that's more on the predictive side could possibly look. So same situation, same sitter / client, but different reading approach. What could be similar is the reader could still give the meanings of the cards first, as in the basic meanings before they give any interpretations. But how a lot of predictive readings go is the reader, instead of asking questions and digging and exploring and wanting to learn what the sitter has to say, will instead tell the sitter what comes up for them, meaning the reader. Such as for the Five of Swords. A predictive reader could say something along the lines of, it seems like there is some sort of history here involving conflict, lots of fights and disagreements. But with this card being in the position of pros, I would say that either there have been a lot of lessons learned from those fights and disagreements, or you or the other person involved has already had their fill of that. And they're ready to move forward into something that's much healthier, something that's better for you relationship-wise. So the reader shares their thoughts based on the card meaning, where the card is positioned in the spread, which, as we've said here, is the pros, and someone who incorporates intuition or psychic abilities in a reading could add that as well. Not to say that you can't add that in the style of reading we do. It's just applied in a very different way. It goes towards prodding the sitter in case there's something that you as the reader can see that they might not. And you formulate your questions in such a way that helps them dig further to see if what you sensed has any merit to it. And as we already said earlier, a predictive reading sometimes does incorporate shadow work as well. So even after a reader shares their observations or thoughts, they could still ask questions to see if the sitter has anything they want to share or add. But yes, that was a quick example of how the approach might be if it was more prediction-centric. And with the second card, the cons, which in this case would be the cons of proceeding with a relationship. A predictive reader might say, there's boredom here, a lot of dissatisfaction. Even if there's good in the situation, someone seems to not really be aware of it or seeing it, not appreciating it. And for me personally, this is me, Leia, now speaking, no longer our pretend reader. So for me personally, why I love the shadow work approach is because it empowers the person we are reading for to come to their own understanding of the situation. Sometimes, especially to those who are very receptive to what someone might say, such as how a client might be to someone they're getting a reading from. Sometimes what happens is, for instance, with a cons card, they might hear something like boredom, dissatisfaction, and they go, yeah, that's right. Even if the reader doesn't tell them to leave, they could, being in a very, as I said, receptive state, they could come to the conclusion of, I'm bored here. I'm not really enjoying myself, so I think I don't really want to be in this relationship anymore. I'm not saying that is true for every client who is in that situation, by the way. All I'm saying is the likelihood of somebody who is in a receptive state, who might also be vulnerable, because a lot of the time people come to readings because they are looking for help, they are looking for insights. So someone in that state may be more prone or susceptible to hearing something they resonate with and going with that, rather than in a reading where the reader asks a lot of questions to explore how the sitter or client feels, and they can arrive at a decision after they themselves give it some thought. And by no means am I knocking predictive reading. There are predictive readers out there who are also very good at doing shadow work, and they don't phrase their readings in such a way where they take the power away from the sitter. But with someone who is less skilled, it could definitely create the opposite effect. It's very much a to each their own sort of thing, and those are my personal thoughts on it. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe and get notifications for this channel so you don't miss a thing. I'll be back very soon with more tarot videos that are related to inner awareness, personal growth, healing, shadow work, and the like. So stay tuned, and until then, take care of yourself. Bye for now. So many more Diaries of a Witchy Creative Life are coming your way.